This has opened my eyes to a whole new area of modelling potential. A big hi to you, it's so great to see you. How are you doing? I hope you're well. I'm Jenny Kirk and this is We're Yard. Today we're going to be taking a look at another item from the TMC sale. They're having a big warehouse clearance, and after I took a look at the APT, it actually sold out. So it proved incredibly popular. So they've very kindly sent over a couple of other models for us to take a good close look at. And these are the ROD, Rail Operations Division 280s, based on the Robinson 8K, later Class 04 of the LNER. These were locomotives built as part of the war effort, and it has to be remembered that back in the First World War, transportation and logistics was what made or broke an army. And of course, railway was still king because road transport was pretty much just horse and carts and very early lorries, which couldn't carry much and were deeply unreliable. Plus, battlefield conditions meant that roads very quickly got churned up into deep, claggy mud that meant nothing could get through. So the Rail Operations Division had their standard locomotive designs that they would build en masse for undertaking that role, keeping the supplies moving. Bachmann brought us this model first in the BR and LNER versions and a special in Great Central Railway livery. Well, some of the embellishments of that Great Central Railway version have reappeared on this ROD, and there's quite a few other detail differences which surprised me because I wasn't aware of them, but getting this chance for a good close look really turned my head. And they also sent over one of these models with their £20 value weathering if you order it at the time of purchase of the base model. And I have to say that this caught my eye possibly more than the base model. Do they live up to expectations? Are they really a bargain? Well, come with me and let's take a closer look in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support comes from...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model OO gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest loco.
Well, I'm really looking forward to these, and don't forget to tickle that like button, share the video, and keep watching for the end, because we've got an announcement that, thanks to the generosity of TMC, one of the two models that you see today is going to be up for a giveaway on next week's Monday Club. You're going to have to watch that live to be in with a chance, but one of these models, complete mint, brand new inbox, will just give it away, and to the lucky winner they'll get one of these locomotives to enjoy forever. But come with me and let's see how good is this model. After the week before last's APT video taking a look at that Hornby model which I'd found at a really great price at TMC, TMC very kindly offered to send over for us to have a good close look at some of the other items that they've got in their sale, and the item that they've sent is this Rail Operation Division's 280, which is a Bachmann model, and I've got a catalogue number there, 35-175, Railway Operating Division 280, number 1918 in War Department Black, and it's got a 21-pin DCC socket, and I will be showing you later on how to use the 21-pin Trainomatic decoder to be able to DCC fit this yourself really quite easily. But they've sent not one, but two of these, and the reason will become quite clear. You can see one of these has had the TMC value weathering, and this is something which, if you buy a model from them, you can request this It's £20 and they will value weather your model before sending it out. You can also choose upgraded weathering with a lot more intensity of detail, but the basic weathering really does tone down the quite shiny factory finish of the clean Locomotive, and I'm going to be showing you these two to show you the difference. You can also send your own model to be value weathered, but that will cost you £30, but certainly it's an interesting opportunity to show the difference between these two, and TMC have also very kindly offered to let me give away one of these models, and we'll be doing that on next week's Monday Club, and we will be posting more details about that. You'll have to watch the Monday Club live to be in it to win it, but certainly this one is being given away, and we'll have a little bit more details about that at the end of the video. But the ROD 280, which was derived from the Robinson 8K, was an interesting locomotive, and I've got here the National Railway Museum commission of the Robinson 8K in its Great Central Railway livery, designed by Robinson to fulfill the heavy coal haulage of the Great Central Railway. Very successful design, and came along at just the right time, so to speak, as the First World War kicked off. The Rail Operations Division, who were responsible for running the trains, maintaining the tracks and keeping supplies moving, were looking for a heavy freight locomotive that could be mass produced and shipped to the continent to help keep all of the supplies getting to where they needed to be. And it has to be remembered that during the First World War, the train was still king. The roads were pretty ropey. Early internal combustion engine trucks were very unreliable and really not that great. The only other alternatives were quite literally horse and cart. So it was absolutely necessary to be able to keep trains moving, to repair tracks, and this locomotive design was chosen for mass producing. And that's where the version that we've got here comes in. This is the Rail Operations Division version, and these differed in a few ways from the production Robinson 8K, but certainly not enough to make them look radically different. Now I'm just going to be sliding this out, and we've got the full detailing pack here, which has got all the brake rigging. That's a speaker enclosure if you want to sound fit these, and some buffer beam detail as well. And the locomotive itself is here quite heavy, actually. Now, I'm not sure that we've ever actually reviewed one of these Robinson 8K derived models, but certainly they were well travelled. And the ones that were built for the War Department, of course, were deployed all over Europe, got as far as Persia, which is modern-day Iraq, and certainly Palestinian railways, Egyptian railways, all over the place these would have run. And it's rumoured that some even got as far as China. After the war, the Rail Operations Divisions were left with a huge surplus of these, and not really having anything immediately to do with them, they offered them up for sale, and over time that sale price dropped and dropped. A number were hired out to railways in the UK, and you could have seen these pretty much in this kind of livery, perhaps with the ROD number painted out in black, being used on the Caledonian Railway. The London and North Western Railway bought some as well, which ended up ultimately into LMS ownership. That has been done as a model by Bachmann as well. They were used by the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, and the Great Western Railway too bought several of them, and they became westernized to some degree, which did involve a few little changes, and that is also a variant which Bachmann have done a model of. After the grouping, the LNER did buy a number more, And a number of them were also sold out to Australia, where they were used on the John Brown railway system in New South Wales for hauling coal. And whilst there was actually quite a fleet of these available, not all of them worked at the same time, and they worked right through to the 1970s when they were retired, making them the final operation Robinson 8K derived locomotives anywhere in the world. And two of those in Australia have been preserved, and a single example has been preserved as part of the National Collection in the UK and can be often seen running at the Great Central Railway. This particular livery example has a number of minor detail differences from the production BR versions, which became the LNER's 04. And I've got one of those examples here so we can compare some of the differences. Most notably are some embellishments on the boiler. So you can see here we've got some minor detail differences to do with extra equipment that these were fitted with, which isn't there on the 04 example. And we've also got a slightly different works plate on these. That's got the circular Great Central Railway Gorton Works build plate, whereas the Rail Operations Division locomotive has got this diamond shape build plate, and I suspect that's something like North British, although I can't quite see clearly on the camera, but when we get the close-up stills we'll be able to look really quite closely at that. You can also see that there's some additional equipment just here on the BR version. Between the frames we've got the automatic lubricator, we've got some additional pipe work down the side of the boiler, and when we look at the ROD version, that equipment is quite different there. And we've got some different bits and pieces here just at the front, correctly denoting this as a Rail Operation Division locomotive. Looking to the front, we've got the round buffers. These aren't sprung, but they have got the hole in the middle where they would have been packed with grease so that they would have been able to run for long periods of time without needing application of grease, and would have saved the buffer heads from wear and any other kind of damage. We've got the Great Central Railway style firebox front door, which I'm just going to pick this one up, and you can see there it's different in design to the later Robinson 04 variety, which would have run on British Rail and before that the LNER. We've also got a taller chimney. Of course, overseas we had the burn gauge, which meant that there was a lot more room for these to be able to fit within the loading gauge, and that meant that a taller funnel with a better draft on the fire could be fitted. Looking to the other side, one of the most immediate examples that we can see here of extra equipment is this Westinghouse air pump. These were, of course, expected to be able to run with pretty much anything, and on the continent a lot of the native rolling stock and locomotives were air braked instead of vacuum braked, so it made sense for the locomotives to be equipped with that Westinghouse pump. And then we've got the rest of the detail in there, this lovely satin black finish. The 1918 is crisp and clean. And then again, the rod 1918 on the tender is really nicely done. There's no blurring, there's no bleed through. And I do really like the inside of the cabs on these. Just turning that round, you can see there all of that back head detail. And the cab interior is picked out in the cream, which I think is really, really quite eye-catching. It's one of those cab interior colour designs which really does show off the detail. There's a lot of rivet detail on the back of that boiler. We've got the sight gauges, and right up at the top we've got other gauges that are just trying to get the light to shine on them, and you can see they've even got needles on those as well. I'm just going to quickly compare that to the BR version and just see what, if anything, detail wise is different on there. I don't think there is anything too much, although we've got different colour detail differences in there, and these metal rails at the back as well, and a full plate on the tender, which is posable. You can flick that down should you choose, or for protection in the box it comes in the upright position. The coal load on the tender is removable, and I'm just going to see if I can tap that out, and that gives us the correct rendition of the top of the tender, and that's perfect for building up a pile of real crushed coal, although do bear in mind that the tender coal insert is actually a casting, which does mean that it adds a little bit of adhesive weight. With those detail differences out of the way, I'm going to move on to showing you the value weathered version of this locomotive. This comes in the standard box, again same catalogue number, but with the little triangle in the corner to denote that it has been weathered. Again, we've got all of the additional brake rigging there on top in a separate bag, and let's just very carefully get this model out and lie it down so that we can see the difference that the value weathering makes. And if you buy the locomotive from a TMC, they do the value weathering for an additional £20, or you can send your own locomotive of any type. It doesn't have to be this specific locomotive, and they will do that for £30. Now the difference is that it's certainly toned down that slightly shiny satin black appearance, and we've got this look of a locomotive that has been worked out in the field. It's got brake dust, it's got a smattering of rust, and it has to be remembered that steam locomotives, as we see them now on preserved railways and in museums, are meticulously clean. But back in the day, and certainly on the war front, these locomotives would have been literally run into the ground. And this value weathering really very quickly tones the model down to look like a workhorse that has been worked, looked after, yes, but certainly worked hard, and is starting to show that patina of dirt, of grime, of rust that would very quickly build up on any locomotive. One thing that I do like is that they've purposefully kept the coal insert clean. You wouldn't expect the coal to look rusty, so it's nice to see that that has been taken out whilst the weathering process has taken place. And let's see if we can carefully get that metal weight out. The value weathering has extended to the interior of the tender as well, which is a really great touch. You can also see that we've got the rustier patch around the safety valves and the whistle, where you can imagine with the blowing off it would be subjected to hot steam that would gradually deteriorate some of the boiler cladding finish. I also do particularly like that this actually emphasises some of the detail underneath the boiler, makes it clearer to see, makes that Westinghouse pump a lot clearer too, and particularly it's done a great job on the running gear. And one of the other things to note is that these aren't just a blow-over weathering with the locomotive stationary, which would end up with clean spots where the rods had been, but these are actually weathered with the locomotive running to ensure that you get a good even finish over the entirety of the side rods and the wheels themselves, and there's particular attention to that rusty patina on the lower part of this locomotive, and I really do like that dirty front bogie and the extra rust on the fronts of the cylinders. Looking to the front too, we've got particular attention to those buffers, and I like the oily, greasy smudges in the centre, which makes this look every bit a locomotive that's been at work, it's been shunting. There really is quite an attention to detail on this weathering application that extends to the back. We've also got that greasy dark smudge, and it does tone down all of that lettering really, really well. Looking on the underside of the locomotive, we have pickup from all 8 of the driving wheels. These are wipers set on the back tread of those wheels. It's not clear whether we've got additional pickups on the tender or not, but in all honesty, this is not something that the locomotive suffers with, and whether it has tender pickups or not, this doesn't seem to make any difference to the reliability of the running, which is pretty good. Couplings are in NEM pockets, and they're the standard slimline tension locks, front and back, and if you don't want the coupling on the front, then this does just pull out from the plug at the center of the front bogie, which has a very pleasing open frame design which matches the look and feel of the prototype. When it comes to DCC fitting your model, I've got here the DCC Concepts service cradle, and I use a couple of blocks of foam just to avoid any damage to the whistle, and we'll just turn that over with the whistle in the recess in the middle, and then using a very small jeweler's crosshead Phillips type screwdriver. There are 4 screws in each of the corners of the tender. These are tiny little screws, so you do need a very small screwdriver or you will just damage the heads. And now we're going to very carefully take the locomotive, put it back upright. Let's get rid of the cradle for now, and then very gently rock the tender body free, and that just lifts off. And inside you can see that we've got the blanking plate. Now this appears to be a capacitor for some kind of smooth running. I'm not entirely sure how important it is, but you do not appear to need to remove it for DCC running, but it's not essential if you need to remove it for space. Inside the tender we have a lot of room, and if you want to sound fit this locomotive, there is space underneath here for a small sugar cube style speaker, or alternatively you can fit it on top. Plenty of room for a stay alive, but for now I'm just going to do a basic DCC fit, removing the blanking plate, and then I'm going to very quickly show you our 21-pin Trainomatic decoder, which are available from the link in the description box via the UK stockist tramfabrique.co.uk, and we just fit that onto the pin headers, make sure it's lined up, and then gently rock that down into position. And it's as simple as that. You really don't need to worry about DCC fitting this model. Let's get the tender body back on. I'm just going to put it back to the service cradle just to make sure that there's no damage here. And then you might just need to move this about just to get those holes to line up. So we've got the tender body just carefully jiggled all the way down, and then it's simply a case of adding back in the 4 small screws. Don't over torque these, it will just strip the thread. You just need to go until you feel a little bit of resistance and nothing more. And it's as simple as that. We can then transfer the model to the programming track, where out of the box the decoder is set to address 3. We can change that if we want, and actually I would suggest 1918 is a really nice easy DCC address, because it means you can instantly see from the side of the locomotive which number you need to be putting into your handset to be able to control it. So we turn now to the scores. First up is build quality, and I have to say, by and large, the model is pretty robust, and even the whistle on the top is not too prone of getting broken. There's also a lot of other additional detail which stayed put. The only areas where I felt that the model does have a tendency to have a few issues is that this metal part just behind the cab has a tendency to catch on things and pull out. The coal load insert as well can fall out often at the most inopportune points when you're trying to lift it on and off the track. Other than that, Everything else really did manage to stay put, so I'm going to give this a 9.1 out of 10. On running quality, the models did perform really, really well, actually pulling a load far in excess of what the prototype would ever be asked to do. It also took in the twists and turns of Weir Yard without ever showing any signs of being prone to derail or stutter on any of the point work, including double slips, the changes in gradient, and the only thing that I could really fault on this was actually that the metal sanding pipes, which did have a tendency to bend down, at which point they would dig into the track, and that was the only thing that very occasionally might cause an issue until you bent them out of the way. Other than that, they were a really faultless performer out of the box, and even though it's recommended that you run these in for a little while, I actually found no real need to do that. So I'm going to give these 9.7 out of 10. On DCC fitting and innovation, these were incredibly easy to DCC fit. Just 4 screws and the tender top lifts off, and there's plenty of space in there, both for a sound installation with a decent size cube speaker and also a stay alive if you really wanted to. But as I said in the review, I don't think that these locomotives particularly need that. Certainly on Weir Yard, there was no signs of a stay alive being required in any way. There's not really any other embellishments, and it has to say that these predate the craze for starting to add things like firebox flicker. The only area where I felt that Bachmann really do need to improve, not just this but all tender locomotives, is the tender to locomotive connector. It's just a simple slide fit, and that makes it possible for the tender to accidentally slip off that, and you end up pulling the train just by the wires, which can risk breaking them. I don't know why they persist with this version of connector, and certainly other manufacturers have well and truly moved away from it, but it's been a gripe for a while, and I'll bring it up in this review. So I'm going to give this an 8.6. On accuracy and quality of finish, I really do like the fact that they've tooled up some actually quite minor detail differences between the different versions of the Robinson 8K, later 04. Even subtle things like the mechanical lubricators not being there on this version but being there on the BR versions, the Westinghouse pump and the other accoutrements on the front in front of the smokebox door. I like the fact that we've got both this wheel style smokebox door and the later clock arm type, and it's just little things like that that really have made it possible for Bachmann to produce the full suite of all of the different versions of these rather than just going for one and sticking with it, and I do like it when a manufacturer does that. So I'm going to give this a 9.5. On value for money, the models are retailing for just over £116 in the TMC sale. Whilst a lot of people do gribble about prices these days, it almost seems to have become a bit of a pastime in certain areas of the hobby. It has to be remembered that costs have gone up dramatically for making and distributing these. Now let's break that down. For a tender locomotive tooled to modern standards for under £120, brand new, we're just not going to see that again, and therefore these warehouse clearances offer plenty of opportunities to be able to have a final hurrah of the prices that we wish would come back, but in truth they probably aren't. And there's a lot of options to upgrade and customize, such as the TMC weathering service. So I'm going to give this all in an 8.9, and that gives us a final score of 45.8. It's an interesting model, and certainly one which, up until I got to see it up close and personal, I'd almost written off. But there's some great detail on this that's different from all the other versions, and the more I look at them, the more I keep thinking about modelling ideas. Imagine this: we paint out the ROD 1918 and, from the wealth of aftermarket suppliers, new number plates to put on them, and suddenly you've got those locomotives that were sent to the Caledonian Railway on hire. or the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, or indeed another one of the London and North Western Railway versions. You could do a whole host of different niche liveries doing that, or even renumber it with a different rod number, build up a fleet of these. And in terms of modelling opportunities, I can imagine that some kind of interchange between a trench warfare railway and the mainline supply depot would be an interesting modelling option. Modelling the desolation of the Western Front with something such as these, and with the value weathering, making the locomotive ready for service, you could specify that and then be safe in the knowledge that once you've finished the fun stuff of making your scene, your locomotive will just automatically match in without any risk to yourself of accidentally making a hash of it. There are plenty of different opportunities, and I have to say that this has opened my eyes to a whole new area of modelling potential. So all in all, this is a model that I'm actually quite glad that TMC have given us an opportunity to have this close look. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video, and don't forget that we are going to be doing a giveaway of one of the models featured in today's video in next week's Monday Club, and this is thanks to the generosity of TMC, who've specifically sent me the second model to give away. So that's how we're going to be doing it. You're going to have to watch that Monday Club live. We will put out some more information between now and then, but you could become the proud owner of one of the models that you saw today. Don't forget as well to tickle the like button, share this video, and I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Have you got one of these? What are your thoughts on it? And what are your thoughts about the value weathering? Is this something that after you've seen it up close and personal, you're thinking, actually, that really does add something special to the model? And certainly for me, I have to say, I was quite impressed by it. It wasn't just a blowover with an airbrush with one colour. There was a lot of thought that went into some of the detail embellishments, such as the extra rust around the safety valves and the whistle, where hot steam would have blasted across things, the dirty motion, where they'd actually run the model whilst applying the weathering, and I think that is really important. And then that black grease applied just at the centre of the buffer heads just added that extra special something. But I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Do leave me a comment telling me what you think. And also don't forget to tickle the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so, and check out the merchandise store as well, where we've got a whole host of different designs, from Billy's replacement speakers, Gronk It Up, Terrier Fest, and everything else besides. You can have them on t-shirts, hoodies, and also mugs as well, and you can look absolutely resplendent in your new clobber and threads. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself. Happy modelling. Bye for now. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCT decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest loco.
I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, but a special thanks go out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky107107, George Botterini, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, NYMRish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, NI Railways 4000 class, Ian Coulson, Alan Dickerson, Eddie Popper, Karen Nichol, Medwin Williams, Crossways Point Junction, 3B Rail, Jennifer Horton, Michael Rose, Trains with Nick, and Simon Snow. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.